My is named Victor. When I was little, my parents divorced, so I grew up with just my mother. Mom had a chronic ailment, which made it difficult for her to work even though she was employed full-time. She could only work a couple of hours on a part-time basis. We led an extremely poor lifestyle because we were dependent only on my mother's income, while my father did not provide child support. Even so, I was content to be in her company. Our meals were simple, especially for a growing boy, but we always had a good time sharing them with her and had a lot of smiles. Despite her protests, I chose to begin working as soon as I graduated from middle school because I wanted to lessen her load. During exam season, I told Mom that I was going to work instead of going to high school. She spoke up, which was not like her at all. She sobbed and added, "Go to high school. Don't worry about the money." I was hesitant to say anything after seeing her like that, but I eventually decided to work since I believe I can be more useful. I'm not that brilliant. I want to return the favor because you've done so much for me. With tears running down her cheeks, she added, "My health is the reason I'm like this." That isn't the case. I choose to work because I want to. It has nothing to do with your health. Don't cry, please. Let's enjoy our supper together like we usually do. I told her so as I made my way to the kitchen. I had to fight back tears when I heard her remark, "Thank you. I'm so proud of you." Mr. Thompson, my middle school teacher, was against my plan to get a job as soon as I graduated, stating that your mother will be saddened. However, even Mr. Thompson had to back down when I firmly stated that I had discussed it with my mother, and she understood. To be honest, it was hard to locate a middle school graduating job at a corporation. I couldn't even get an interview because the majority of employers demanded at least a college degree. At that point, Mr. Thompson stated, "I know of a company that is hiring for sales workers. Even if someone only completed middle school, they still want to interview someone who is driven." I yelled out, "Yes, please," before he could finish. "I'll carry it out. Kindly set up the interview." Then I went to the company with my mother, dressed in an oversized suit. Mr. Thompson presented the HR representative to us. He laughed when he saw how anxious I was and added, "Don't be too tight. Mr. Thompson told me about your character. You don't give up lightly and you have guts, right? We would adore having you join our team." I received the job offer right away. They had never before employed a recent middle school graduate, but Mr. Thompson had been able to convince them to consider me for weeks. The president of the company, Mr. Johnson, approved me because he believed I could provide the business a fresh viewpoint. Mom was listening to me and kept saying thank you with tears in her eyes. I'll put in my best effort. I stood up and showed respect as I said, "Thank you for this chance." The HR staff stated that although the work is challenging, it is also fulfilling. We shook hands and said, "Let's work hard together." Mr. Thompson was crying over the phone when I called to break the wonderful news to him. I was on the verge of tears, but I restrained myself. Mr. Thompson gave me a silver pen and a blue tie as a gift on graduation day and said, "Maybe I shouldn't be doing this for just one student, but don't give up. Keep going." When I wore that gift on my first day of work, I felt as though Mr. Thompson was encouraging me, and my confidence caused my spine to straighten. 5 years have passed since I began working for this company, and time has flown by. Since I had never worked in sales or even part-time employment before, I made mistakes every day at first and received criticism from my manager. But I improved as a teacher because of my colleagues. I was good at training with empathy because I was about the same age as the recent graduates. Upon noticing, my manager frequently gave me the task of training new hires. Mr. Johnson gave his daughter the reins in the spring of my first year there. Despite his advanced age, he made the decision to retire, stating, "The next generation should shape the future. My ideas and ways of working are outdated." I learned via rumors that Mr. Johnson and his spouse relocated overseas to live a more relaxed life after retirement. After graduating from college, his daughter Emily supervised a regional sales office and quickly increased its performance. Emily went on to become the president of the company. Using her sales experience, her philosophy as president was to deliver accurate and timely services. Emily was interested in me from the moment she joined our team. I think she was merely interested in me since I was the newest employee. She would always start a conversation with me when we met at work. She suggested that we share contact details for later on, so we did. From then on, she texted me every day. The messages varied, usually being informal conversations ranging from basic good mornings and good evenings to work exchanges. She then declared one day, "I've been drawn to you ever since I laid eyes on you. Are you interested in dating me?" I thus began dating her. I was dubious at first, wondering why Emily would pick me out of all the other mates. Nevertheless, she was breathtakingly gorgeous, and I couldn't help but be captivated to her allure. Emily was very much a businesswoman at work, which made her all the more charming when she was with me. She revealed her actual self to me, and I felt honored. Few people knew about our relationship since we kept it quiet. Most of our time together was spent in my apartment or on trips. Holding hands, eating meals together, and hanging together in my place was just like any other couple. I had never really loved anyone but my mother until this moment. Emily abruptly stopped reaching out to me at work after we had been dating for a few months. She seemed to be avoiding me, refusing to even say hello. It was in front of me one day that I witnessed her questioning a superior, asking, "Why did you hire a middle school graduate?" Her behavior had changed when she got to know my mother, looking back. Emily had insisted on meeting Mom, and I granted her request even though I felt it was premature. We had made reservations at a restaurant close to my family's house, and at first, we were having a nice time talking and eating. But I do recall how Emily's talkativeness significantly decreased when Mom indicated that she had begun working as soon as she graduated from middle school in order to support me. We didn't talk much on the trip back. Because I thought she was sick, I said, "Should we just go back to your place today?" Usually she would insist on remaining with me longer, but this time she just said, "Okay," and hurried off. Looking back, she just answered, "It's okay," and walked out of my house as if she were fleeing, even though I volunteered to take her home because I was concerned. Now I realized Emily's attitude had altered when she found that I had graduated from middle school. She continued to visit the sales department on a daily basis after that, seemingly observing the staff members. She would say something unpleasant, like, "The presence of a middle school graduate even dulls the atmosphere," if she knew I was here. I received a call to the president's office approximately a week later. "Why are your sales so poor compared to others?" This is how Emily questioned me. "I've been focusing on training new recruits," I started to say, but she interrupted me, stating that someone with only a middle school education could not possibly train new recruits. "Put your attention on your own work if you have time for such pointless activities. Only when you are skilled yourself can you instruct novices. Recognize that you have until next month to reach this quota." I was stunned to hear this and immediately turned to look at the document she was holding. There were sales goals in there that not even the best performers had hit before. "That's impossible in a month," I objected. "If you have time to train newcomers, you should be able to do it, right?" Emily said, smiling mischievously. After work that day, I felt like I had lost all hope. My manager, who was aware of the circumstances, promised to speak with Emily on my behalf. My coworkers also made an effort to uplift me. But the very following day, I handed in my resignation to her, exhausted. She said, "As expected, this is the fate of an incompetent middle school graduate," and I tried not to cry as I left her office. My manager stopped me as I was packing to leave the company, continually apologizing. "Sorry, I couldn't do anything for you." Then, dissatisfied with Emily's treatment of me, he questioned her why she was so adamant about my resignation. She was hesitant to talk at first, but she eventually spoke up when he threatened to inform the former president of the situation. She had previously been in a committed relationship that she thought about getting married to, but their separation was caused by her demanding work schedule and subsequent adultery. That previous romantic partner had completed middle school. She felt incredibly upset and deceived by that relationship, which made her distrust people with only a middle school degree, even though she had worked hard in school, attended reputable high schools and universities, and dated guys with educated backgrounds. I was a middle school graduate, so she thought I was the same kind of person as her ex. I was an adversary to her. I felt a tinge of pity upon hearing this. Though Emily may have lost a great deal of her life to a lavish romance, I was not her previous partner. It seemed regrettable to me that a single negative experience could cause someone to view all middle school graduates as unworthy or to assume that they all act in the same manner. It has been a year since then. I moved employment to a company that a friend had recommended to me. Upon making the decision to quit my prior employment and receiving confirmation of my new position, I notified my former teacher, Mr. Thompson. Even though I could hear the anguish in his voice, he gave me encouraging words over the phone when I stopped. However, he was ecstatic to hear about my new career and even got me a navy blue tie to commemorate it. Because I was too weak to tell Mom the truth, I pretended to be headhunted. She didn't ask any questions, even though she undoubtedly knew I was lying. She made me sandwiches and prepared a special lunch for my first day of work. In actuality, my acquaintance referred me to roughly 3 businesses. They all offered fantastic benefits and were open to hiring me, even though I just completed middle school. Of them, Mr. Carter from the company I eventually joined impressed me the most. The day of our interview, which my acquaintance set up, I met Mr. Carter at a cafe. We were early for the scheduled time at the cafe. I had scheduled a meeting time with Mr. Carter, but he hadn't shown up even 5 minutes later. Knowing him to be on time, my friend worriedly pondered, he normally arrives on time. I was going to give someone a call when I wondered if something had happened. At that moment, an old guy rushed over to our table, blotting perspiration from his brow, and apologized profusely for being late. "Mr. Carter, we were worried," my friend said. "You almost never arrive late." "I'm really sorry. I ran into a bit of trouble on the way here," Mr. Carter said in his apology. "Hi, my name is Brad Carter," he said as he gave me his business card. I tried to think of where I had seen him previously because he seemed familiar. I was talking to my friend as I walked to the cafe. My friend's phone called as we were traveling, and as he spoke, I wondered what type of person Mr. Carter was. Something about an old man and an old woman at a police station caught my eye. While a nearby police officer was on the phone, the elderly guy was maintaining eye contact with the elderly woman. A short while later, an old lady's relative ran into the station and continued thanking the old man. Though I wasn't sure at the time, I wondered if he had assisted the elderly woman who had gone missing. "Were you by any chance at the police station earlier?" I questioned him. He answered, "Yeah, I was." An elderly woman was struggling to find her way home. "I couldn't just leave her there, but I had to come see you people. Thus, I apologize for it," he replied, seeming a little ashamed. I was so convinced that I wanted to work for him after our talk. I exclaimed excitedly as our meeting was nearing to an end, "Mr. Carter, I'd like to work for you." He exclaimed, "You beat me to it," while laughing mischievously. "I intended to come see you for myself. We need someone like you at our company, so please come along." So the decision on my employment was made immediately. With my sales background, I made a fast impression at my new job. I saw a huge amount of missed calls when I checked my phone one day during a break. That same number called again, and I got a shiver. I hesitantly replied, "Hello." Emily was there. I honestly couldn't recall deleting her phone when I left the organization. Therefore, I wasn't familiar with the number. A long time has passed. "How are things going for you?" she went on, sounding as though she was anticipating a reunion. "I phoned because I was waiting for you to get in touch with me, but you didn't. You're really unyielding. I've lost my anger. Why don't you return? Emily's voice, speaking like an ex-lover hoping to reconcile, made me feel icy. I tried to finish the call by saying, I've moved on to another company, so I'll be going now. But Emily cut me off. Hold on. I take it that you enjoyed our company and were reluctant to leave. She said, stop being stubborn and come back. I'm not mad anymore. She sounded as though she wouldn't let me end the call until I said aloud. Finally, I said, I'll go back to the company. I was eager to get off the phone as the afternoon work hours drew near. It was more difficult to hang up the faster I was moving. I felt uneasy at that moment, and Mr. Carter materialized behind me. He said, May I take over for a moment? And struck up a conversation with Emily. After some time, Mr. Carter asked her, Do you want him back as an employee, or are you looking to rekindle a romantic relationship with him? Making the choice between personal and professional responsibilities appears to be challenging. It must be difficult for you, Miss Johnson, he said. It looks like you've lost a significant client and romantic partner. For our business, we would rather not steal such a priceless item. Mr. Carter grinned and told me shortly after the phone ended. I couldn't just stand by when I sensed something was wrong. Regret the interruption. The conversation was not progressing, so I had to end it and hang up. But Mr. Carter said, If you get any more calls and find yourself in trouble, let me know. He gave me my phone back, grinning as usual. My eyes filled with tears as I thanked Mr. Carter, saying, Thank you so much, Mr. Carter. Observing my response, he remarked, One of my responsibilities is to protect our precious staff. Come on, get your spirits up. What say you about this? He gave me a Coke that he had probably purchased from a vending machine. We both started laughing when he said, I meant to buy orange juice, but accidentally bought this. He smiled a little awkwardly. Later, I learned from a former coworker at my previous job that Emily persisted in putting her whole attention on boosting sales performance at the expense of staff development. Consequently, new members continued to leave soon after they joined. In her private life, she seemed to be desperate to marry and thought she could depend on me for staff development as well as a marriage partner. But after receiving a direct rejection from Mr. Carter, she gave up. Emily's business failed quickly, leaving her debt-ridden and alone. I had assumed that her father, the former president, would step in and assist her. But after learning about her actions and my predicament, he made the decision to demand complete accountability from her, even if it came from his daughter. I would never be more than one thing to her. I thought Emily's efficiency-driven result was self-inflicted. Simultaneously, I saw that my interaction with Emily paved the way for my meeting Mr. Carter and aided in my personal development. Though I sincerely hope she would repent, think things through, and choose a different course, I don't want to see her again. I want to be like Mr. Carter. I want to think about other people, aid people who are in need, avoid making workers suffer like I did, and develop good talent for the sake of the business and society at large.